A new study by Nielsen shows that tweeting and watching television actually does correlate to ratings, which I'm going to refer to this from now on as the Sharknado principle. So this is, the Nielsen ratings, in my opinion, basically have just been this made-up thing that we've all sort of accepted, and that's not really just my opinion. A lot of people have written about that. It's just this made-up thing, and there's a box on somebody's TV somewhere in 1960, and we're still paying attention to it. I think this is really cool, and I think this is sort of the future of media and the type of stuff we're doing around here. This social experience that we're all having while watching TV, and something like Sharknado, I think, is the perfect example of this. Nobody heard of it until about 2 hours before. It was on Sci-Fi Network. Suddenly, it somehow got some traction on Twitter, and then I spent 2 hours not only watching it, but having this experience on Twitter, playing along with everyone, joking about how horrific and stupid it was, and it was kind of great, and it gets the buzz going. So you're doing a new show, Take Part, where you guys are doing a lot of, you're tweeting the entire time basically, and during commercial breaks, and you're tweeting on air.
Oh,
I
yeah,
did the show last week, and you're tweeting while we were talking. How important is the social media component to television and all the other forms of media?
I think that we're seeing kind of an evolution in TV viewing, especially in young people. I think that people are still watching cable news or cable television. I think that there is still some amount of appointment television, but for the most part, people are DVRing things, and a lot of people have moved off to the cable pay model, and they've moved on to kind of a Hulu, Netflix model. And I think that this kind of community engagement is a way that the cable companies can really tap in to their dying fan base and bring them back. Because if the entire globe, or I should say all of America at least, is coming together to watch a program live, and it's more compelling, it's more fun if they're there right when it airs, because they can all communicate like we saw with Sharknado. I think that more people are going to tune in that way. I also see, I don't want to say a downside of that specifically, but if you watch Take Part Live, last night
now on the Pivot Network, which just launched last week.
Or maybe, yes, yay. Actually, I'm not sure if it was last night or the night, I think it was the night before. On Monday night, we, part of the Decoder segment, I talked a lot about Shark Week and about Discovery, and how they opened up Shark Week with a documentary about C. megalodon, kind of claiming that it's probably still alive, it hasn't yet gone extinct, and I obviously had a really...
Which is this huge crazy shark, right?
Yeah, it's a big shark that was extinct between 1.5 and 2 million years ago. So I have a real problem with, it's very similar to what they did on Animal Planet, and again, this is Discovery Communications, it's all the same conglomerate. Animal Planet aired a documentary a while back about mermaids and how they're still alive.
And people thought it was real.
People thought it was real, and a lot of people thought that this C. megalodon documentary was real, and they've kind of defended their stance, saying that they want to feed into the fantasy and blah, blah, blah. There was like one very short disclaimer, and to me this does a huge disservice to science communication in this country. And I think I spent all this time being very high and mighty and kind of blaming Discovery, and I didn't take a moment to look at the ratings and who's watching and think, maybe we should be kind of taking some of the blame upon ourselves. Like, we want, I say we, I don't, I didn't, but many people want this kind of programming. And a lot of times, even with this link to Twitter, these companies, these media companies are feeding in to what the people are asking for anyway. Now, I think that's a horrible, horrible mistake if you are delivering news or nonfiction programming. Right. But across the board, when it comes to fiction programming, I think what we're seeing is the idiocratizing, just like the Mike Judge movie, of America. It's really dangerous. Such a good movie.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
As long as they didn't, re-air Sharknado during Shark Week and try to pass it off as science.
No, it's literally almost the same thing. It's that bad,
And Sharknado is already getting a sequel, but isn't there something cool about that experience in and of itself, even if it doesn't really translate to ratings? Because I don't know that the ratings actually of Sharknado were that crazy.
They were huge.
Well, they were not as record-setting as the Twitter
right? Because Twitter, it was nuts. It was completely nuts. But it was still
they were still beating out, I think, like primetime shows on major networks, which you would never expect to happen on Sci-Fi.
Right. So it helps, but that experience, that's the part that I think is really cool. Like whether
I think it's amazing. I mean, it's like the same power that can like liberate, authoritarian governments, in the Middle East. Like a network, 10 years ago, the best they could hope for is like some press and water cooler conversation. But today, the water cooler is global and it's on Twitter. You know, it's an amazing world we live in. Our whole like shared collective experience of something is like changed.
Yeah. So that being said, does it even matter if people are watching? Because that's the part that I think is interesting here. Nielsen seems to be sort of made up, and maybe we're going to get to a point where it doesn't even matter what people are. It's just what they're talking about, not what they're watching.
I did tweet a bit about Sharknado, and I didn't watch it.
Well,
I was like seeing all of the chatter. I was in Vegas for a conference. I was seeing all the chatter. Granted, I was tweeting like, I'm so bummed that I'm not watching Sharknado. I can't believe what everybody's saying just happened to Ian Ziering and blah blah blah. You know, so but I still haven't seen it.
That's funny,
it's like
because
sitting in the DVR.
We're here in California, so I was. You know, it was all happening during the East Coast feed. So I was actually just tweeting the tweeting of Sharknado. I wasn't even tweeting Shark.
I hate that there's not a simultaneous feed on a lot of these networks.
So final thought on this. When you go to the old school programming, like CNN is now bringing back Crossfire, which we've talked about, which I think is the absolute worst TV show in the history of television. And I just saw that they launched their Twitter account. You know, it's got a couple hundred followers. Is there something about like the old school media companies and their sort of inability to really handle the social media stuff the way that a younger thing like Take Part or what we do here can really do it, because it's true. It's not coming from some like corporate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Twitter buzz is enough to fund good content, you know, at the end of the day. And so I think that like people still need to tune in and support the shows that they like to watch. Because it's sort of like the Conan O'Brien effect too. It's like when Conan was having that whole thing with the Tonight Show, and he had like obviously a way bigger support base than Jay Leno, but his support base, they're not watching TV, you know. So like, I think that's part of the reason why he was relegated. So I don't know. I mean, I think that right now, you know, content will get made, and Twitter buzz is sort of enough to support that. But yeah, the ad model is going to need to sort of catch up.
But I do think it's kind of a duh finding. Right. I mean, and it happens sometimes. You need good statistics to show what everybody kind of already thought. But yeah. The more people that are talking about it on Twitter, probably the more people are watching.
There you go, you crazy YouTubers. Twitter is good.